Hey, thanks for stopping by. Um, I don't want to make this video.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over
I'm
the target.
really not
You are
in the
authorized
mood
to fire at will.
to make this. But I'm doing it. You see, in 2007, I was designing kitchens and working for a high-end design company in Rochester. And I was a low man on the totem pole when the housing market took the dump, and I got the axe. And I went to work for Fish and Pets, pet store. Second day in, it was my second time working for him. My second day in, the owner asked me to be the GM and sales manager, and I agreed. And at the same time, I knew that as much as I love working for Greg and Deb and with Sarah, I wasn't going to be able to do that for the rest of my life. It wasn't a career, and Greg promised to help me find something in sales if I would just give him some time to get the store back on its feet. They'd been struggling. And my brother, who at the time was working for the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office as a patrol deputy, reached out to me. Well, he's my brother. He doesn't really reach out. He just called me up and he's like, "Hey, dude, the sheriff's office is hiring, and you should apply." And I'm like, "Man, I don't have that degree. I didn't go to school for law enforcement. I didn't go to skills." He goes, "Man, dude, it's all right. It's for the ADC. They'll hire any schmuck." Thanks, Nate. He was right. I applied. And when I applied, there were well over 200. There might have been 300 or more people that actually applied for what ended up being 5 positions. And I applied, took the written test, which was basically a psychological battery, and I took it. And then I took the physical test and barely squeaked by. Thank you, Sam. I will never forget that day. And a short time later, I got called. They said, "Hey, we'd like to have you come in for an interview." Went in for my interview. Short time after that, I got a call and said, "Hey, you're on the hiring list." I'm like, "Awesome." I was thinking, "We'll call you when we're ready for you to start." Took a year. It took a year. So I worked through the end of 2007 for Fish and Pets, worked throughout all of 2008 for Fish and Pets. January of 2009, I started with the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office. I spent almost 13 years there after I made it past the first year, which I wasn't sure was going to happen. I had one of the most phenomenal FTOs I have ever had, field training officers. Her name is Amy, and it's because of her that I survived training. Not because she went easy on me, but because she went hard on me, and she had standards, and she expected me to meet them. And I was terrified of letting her down. And she became a friend. Amy was one of a handful of people who I call friend I don't use that term easily with people that I work with. It doesn't matter the work environment. Y'all gonna have to bear with me. And quite frankly, if you don't like this, I don't really care. Because this is going somewhere. I worked for 3 sheriffs: Steve Von Wald, Dave Mueller, and Kevin Torgerson. I actively campaigned for Kevin Torgerson. Even though I don't live in Olmsted County, I told everybody that I met in Olmsted County to vote for Torgerson because I felt like Mueller. I liked Dave. We got along fine. To this day, if I see Dave, I'll shake his hand and say hi. If I saw him now, I would apologize to him. But I actively campaigned for Kevin Torgerson. In April of 2020, April 25th, as a matter of fact, I launched this channel, the Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, as I headed out to my very first lockdown rally / protest, with the intent of interviewing people who were against the mandatory stay-at-home orders and shutdowns and essential worker classifications. I went to the governor's mansion that day, the governor's residence, the people's residence, where we allow the governor to live, and I began to interview people. Channel got a little bit of traction. I got a little bit of a name. I did my very first protest speech that day, called out Governor Walz, Commissar Walz of the People's State of Marxisota, and reminded him that he is a servant and not a ruler. And I didn't think much of it. Told some people about my experience, told them I was really stoked about what I saw. The fact that I saw Americans standing up. I had been telling people for several years at the sheriff's office, within the adult detention center staff that I work with, things are going south in this country fast. I'd been warning people for a long time. At the beginning of March, I warned people that we were going to get locked down. By the middle of March, I was telling people exactly what it was going to look like. I was telling them that we were going to be following California's pattern. I just laid everything out. Bam, 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 bam. I said, this is what it's going to look like. This is what's going to happen. And within 5 to 6 months, I had people that I work with coming up to me going, dude, how did you know this? And I said, because I pay attention. On the morning of May 30th, several days after George Floyd was lost his life while in police custody, I made a Facebook Live video calling out Kim Norton, the mayor of Rochester, because she stood on the front steps of the law enforcement center and made the statement that that minorities, people of color in Rochester, finally had a right to feel safe in Rochester and Olmsted County when interacting with law enforcement. In that video, I called her out for that statement, and I warned her she should be careful with her use of words. And I stated that her statement as an elected servant was unprofessional and disparaging for no reason, and pointed out the fact that it had been an incredibly long time since there had been any use of deadly force in Rochester by law enforcement, or in Olmsted County by law enforcement. and that it was irresponsible and unprofessional and unethical of Kim Norton to make those statements. That night, I was approached while we were anticipating riots at the law enforcement center. I was approached by Chief Deputy Brian Howard, who oversaw the adult detention center in the master control post where I worked as kind of the nerve center of the adult detention center. And I was told that he needed to talk to me after he made small talk. And I knew something was up because Howard never makes small talk with me. He doesn't like me. We just don't see, we're just not the kind of people that are going to hang out together. He's not my kind of person. And I finally said, let's get to the chase. Let's cut to the chase. What's going on here? And he said, well, I need to talk to you about your video this morning. I'm like, oh, okay. And I said, let's just start by addressing the reality that I've never violated policy and procedure, correct? I've never identified myself as an employee of the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office. I've never stated that I work here. I've never said I'm a deputy. I never said I represent the sheriff's office. And he's like, no. You know what? You're right. You haven't violated policy and procedure, but you just need to use caution because people can figure out who you are and they can figure out where you work. And a lot of people know where you work. And I'm like, not my problem. I've never violated policy and procedure with any of my content. And he goes, well, you did record it while you were driving. And I said, hey, I used a hands-free device. And he goes, well, it could still be considered distracted driving. And I said, you know what, Chief? You know what? You're right. And that won't happen again. That pissed me off. And so I wrote and rewrote and wrote and rewrote and wrote and rewrote an email that I shared with my union representation. And in that email, I detailed the context of the conversation. And then I sent it on the morning of June 5th. I sent the email to Chief Deputy Howard. It took him 2 weeks to respond to me. And in that email, I asked him for clarification. I detailed the entire conversation, detailed the part where even I said, I won't do a live video while I'm driving again. And then I asked for clarification and said, so can you tell me what you mean by I need to use caution? Like I said, it took him 2 weeks to respond. His response was basically, I'll talk to you when you come back. We'll talk in person so we don't have to, be doing this through email. And I said, well, I don't come back to day shift for another couple of weeks. I'd really kind of like the clarification now. He responded to that. And I have this entire email chain, by the way. He said, no, I'll talk to you when you come back to days. That's better. Never heard from him again. He never called me into the office. He never said, hey, let's have that conversation. Not once. I continue to make content and I continue to not talk about where I work. I continue to not tell people that I was a deputy for the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office. The afternoon of February 19th was a Friday, 2021. I was summoned out to my sergeant's office, and he said, well, hey, we need to go talk to the chief. I'm like, well, I'm not coming back in today. I know where this is going. Mind you, it's February 19th. So let's just go matter of fact. June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February. 9 months. Went back to the housing unit where I was, retrieved my stuff, logged off the computer system so that the deputy that had come down to relieve me could log on, grab my coffee mug and my water, walked out to the office, to the conference room, went in. Chief Deputy Howard was sitting in the conference room and he said, you want to have a seat? And I said, do I need union representation? And he says, well, I don't think so. I'm like, oh, all right, maybe this isn't what I think it is. And he said, well, you're being formally disciplined with a disciplinary step notice. And I said, that doesn't work for me. You're going to have to excuse me. I'm going to go get my cameras. And his response was, you do what you need to do, Todd. And I did. And I have the video that followed. It's a little over 10 minutes long. I began to record, and I was reading the letter of reprimand, and we'll be getting to that in subsequent videos, following videos. And I read in this letter of reprimand, this formal disciplinary step notice, that it said, because you failed to basically, because you failed to adhere to previous coaching, you are being disciplined. Future violations of this could result in more severe discipline up to and including termination. And I said, wait a minute, are we going back to that day in Master Control where you approached me and we're considering that part of the disciplinary process? And he says, yes, absolutely. And I said, do you remember the email that I sent requesting clarification? And Howard said, yes. And I said, so why did I never get clarification? And his response was, because policy is clear and I didn't think I needed to give it. I continued to read the letter, asked several clarification questions about whether or not signing was an admission of guilt, anything like that. And then I asked towards the end of the video, I said, now that this process is started, can we get back together and talk about what it looks like going forward? And Howard said, absolutely, I think that'd be a good idea, but I'm going to need to get some coaching, some counseling of my own, because policy can be debated. Once again, on video, audio, mostly. You can't really see him, but you can hear him. I took the rest of the day off, came back into work the next day on Saturday, went about my business. I was a wreck. Wrote another email asking for, I've been asked to speak at events. I've been asked to interact with elected and politicians and people who are running for office. I asked if I was going to be allowed to do that. I asked for clarification on what was expected of me. Was I being ordered to take certain things down? Was I being ordered to not say certain things? Sent that email. On Wednesday, the 24th, I returned to work. In the morning, the sergeant calls me out and said, hey, the chief's got your clarification. Let's go out and talk to him. I went out there. Chief handed me a letter. I was thinking, okay, here's my clarification. I open it up, and as I'm looking at it, he says, oh, and by the way, you're being placed under internal investigation because we received another complaint from a member of the public. He received the complaint the same day that I got my write-up. The internal investigation started basically that day. So they had been investigating me since basically February 19th. I wasn't informed, which is fine. They're not required to tell me about it until they want to, basically. Until February 24th, the complainant was an employee of Olmsted County. Her name is Terry Dose, and she just complained about my social media content, and that's what allegedly launched which was a lie, by the way, and we'll get there in future videos and content. But she was one of the complainants, and I knew Terry. Terry and I had worked inside of the adult detention center together. We had a very good working relationship, but she is a leftist shill. She's a leftist. Everybody knows she's a leftist. She didn't like my content, so she used knowledge of where I worked to complain about my content, to continue to pile on and getting me into trouble. So here I am. I'm placed under internal investigation, but I'm not sent home on administrative leave. And this investigation stretches on for over basically 60 days. During the course of that investigation, I am called in for an investigatory interview. I was placed under what's referred to as Garrity. The attorney that they hired, one Michelle Soldo, who I have now subsequently found out has an incredibly bad reputation in the state of Minnesota. Found out subsequently that she has been accused of ethics violations and dishonesty in her investigatory work. During the course of that interview, she badgered me. She didn't interview me. She was, in the words of the union attorney who sat there with me, she was prosecuting me as if I was sitting in an arbitration hearing in front of an arbitration judge to determine whether or not I should be terminated. Finished the interview and then returned to work. A few weeks later, the investigation was concluded. April 30th, I was placed on administrative leave. Friday, April 30th, about 5:45 in the evening, I was placed on administrative leave by Chief Deputy Howard. I was escorted into the conference room yet again with my now a new sergeant, and was told that I was being sent home. And my response was, "What's next?" And the chief deputy, by the way, then proceeded to try and act like it wasn't personal, and it's personal. You need to understand this is personal. Then he asked me, he said, "Did you bring your sidearm with you today?" And I said, "Yes, I did." And he said, "Well, can I make that safe while you're in the building?" Keep in mind, once again, I've never advocated for violence. I do not advocate for violence. I do not advocate for being the initiator of the use of force in any way, shape, or form. And the chief deputy asked me if he can make my weapons safe. I said, "Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous." He escorted me out of the building. I left. I came home. Had a fire when I got home that night, and enjoyed a couple of cocktails. About a month later, I received a letter with intent to terminate. I had what's referred to as a laudermill hearing. The union attorney and the union rep and I, we laid out the case for why they were going to get their butts handed to them by the courts, and they would have. And that was it. They made it clear they were going to pursue termination, but the head of HR approached that same day after the laudermill hearing, approached the my union attorney and asked him if I would consider any kind of buyout to resign. And the union attorney, to his credit, said, "Are you kidding me? This case is too winnable. That will not be happening." After several weeks, I finally watched what this was doing to me. And I approached the union attorney and I said, "What would a buyout look like? What would it look like?" And he goes, "Well, it's funny that you would ask that because the county's already offered that. The county knows Olmsted County knows they're going to get their asses handed to them by the courts. They don't want that. They know that's why they made that first offer to him that day, because they know they're wrong. They know they're absolutely 100% patently false, that they're wrong." And the other part of the problem is I'm actually, I'm pissed. Okay. I'm going to tell you, I would twist Kevin Torgerson and Chief Deputy Howard in circles intellectually. I would absolutely devastate them. They're morons. They're absolute idiots. They walked in it. See, they had me in a really good spot from February 19th on, because I did everything they asked me. I took down the videos that they ordered me to take down. I deactivated all of my social media except for my YouTube channel. I continued to make YouTube videos. I continued to talk about the situation that I was in, but I didn't mention names. I said, people are trying to cancel me, and it was true. They are trying to cancel me. But I never mentioned the name of any of the people involved. I never mentioned the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office. I never mentioned Kevin Torgerson, the sheriff of Olmsted County. I never mentioned Chief Deputy Howard. I never mentioned any of that at all, ever, not once. I just said, people are trying to take my livelihood away from me. People are trying to cancel me. Finally, working back and forth with a union attorney, I said to him, "You look, tell them to make me an offer, but not to insult me." And they did. They insulted me. They offered me 6 weeks of severance. Now, keep in mind that I've never had a major write-up, major disciplinary issue. I mean, working in that kind of work, you're going to get some sort of write-up, counseling, coaching, verbal, whatever. All of that's going to be documented. And there again, we're going to get into all of this in future videos. We're going to talk about a lot of things. But they had me in a good spot for them because I was shut down, really. The videos that they were most pissed off about were the videos related to Kelly Don Martinez, the city of Albert Lea city attorney. Those were videos that they directly ordered me to take down, and I took them down, not because I was guilty, but because I was trying to show a willingness to work with them. They had me in a good spot. They had a little bit of semblance of control over me, and they screwed up because they chose to continue to fight with me. And I told the union attorney, I says, "We're going to fight this." And he goes, "You're damn right we're going to fight this." He says, "This is winnable." He says, "I've already told the union board that this is winnable and to fight it." And I got news for you. If he didn't think we could win it, he would have told him this is unwinnable. He's an idiot. He got himself into his own position. Do not, I mean, you can defend him all you want, but my counsel is going to be, don't try and get him to resign. That was never his counsel to me, ever. He says, "I'm going to tell you how you're going to want to respond to this," but he says, "You can win this. You can win this." And if you've gotten to know me at all, just a little bit, I'm a stubborn cuss. But here's something else. When I'm wrong, I'll admit it. When I'm right, I fight. The reason that I said, tell them to make me an offer, is because it was tearing my family apart. Kevin Torgerson, you destroyed a good employee. And you made my family's life hell. And the only reason that we're sitting where we are right now is because you are a bully and a egomaniacal, monstrous personality who is only interested in making Kevin Torgerson look good. And when I am done with you in the court of public opinion, sir, not in a physical way, but in the court of public opinion, Kevin Torgerson, people in Olmsted County, they might vote for you, but they're going to have to hold their noses to do it because you stink. You are a corrupt and disgusting person. Your well-polished image of being part of the Special Olympics and the polar plunge and all of that is for one reason and one reason only, and it's to make yourself look good in the public eye. And ladies and gentlemen, you need to understand that the reason that this video is being made is because Kevin Torgerson personally ordered my termination. And they fabricated and constructed reasons why, and none of it is provable on their end, which is why the county made the first offer, which is why the county, before I ever said anything, asked if I would consider a buyout, because they knew they were going to get their asses handed to them. And I would have loved to eviscerate Torgerson and Howard and the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office and the county of Olmsted County in a courtroom, but I was not going to drag my family through this anymore. So we did some back and forth, and I found out that Torgerson was fighting. He didn't want to offer anything, and then he didn't want to offer more than the 6 weeks, and then he didn't want to offer any more than 3 months, and on and on and on and on and on, until we finally got to a point where the head of HR went around Torgerson and said, "Look, let me see what I can do." He got an offer, and I've decided to take it, and I have turned in my resignation. call it early retirement, if you will. And in the process, I have also sent a letter to the entire body of the Deputy Sheriff's Association, the union that covers all of the non-supervisory staff and non-law enforcement and non-correction staff in the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office, explaining and detailing, not in great detail, why I'm doing what I'm doing. Almost 13 years. Made some mistakes, made a lot of mistakes, honestly, was assaulted in the line of duty. If my friend Joe hadn't been in the right place at the right time, I would have been killed that night or seriously injured in a very physical way. It was rough recovery anyway. But everything that I had ever dealt with, one, off the books already. Two, the last write-up that I received was shortly after I was assaulted, and I had turned myself in on that and got a write-up. And I was told that we have to do this to him because we're also doing it to somebody else, who, by the way, was a problem deputy in the first place. And they treated me exactly the way they treated that person, even though I had a stellar, for lack of better terminology, pretty much a stellar performance rating and review every year of my employment with the sheriff's office. Demonstrably true. In fact, not even a month before February 19th, I had just received my annual review, and it was a couple of points out of a perfect score. So effective September 1st of 2021, I am no longer employed by the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office. I am no longer employed by Olmsted County. You done screwed up. And here are some of the people that done screwed up. Kevin Torgerson, you screwed up. We could have worked this out if you'd stood on the Constitution. We could have worked this out if you had approached me and said, hey, I don't want this to be about discipline. Let's talk about what's going on here. Brian Howard, you done screwed up. I'm smarter than you. I'm tactically more inclined than you are. You might have got what you wanted. I might not be there anymore, but you hurt your team, and everybody on that team is going to know, and no one's going to trust you anymore. There again, Kevin, you might continue to run for sheriff. You might continue to win. You might be even unopposed. And there's not much I can do about that. But I'm going to be telling people all of the crap you fabricated and made up, so that at least, and we're going to talk about how much money you spent investigating wicked, evil, criminal T.C. Pearson. But the gloves are off. You have no authority, no control over me anymore. None. You don't have anything to hold over my head, Kevin. You don't, nothing, you dirtball. You've got nothing over me anymore. And I know people warned me years ago that you were a power-hungry, power-mad bully and brute. And I'm like, no, he's not that bad. No, you're worse than that, because you're smarmy and you're schlocky and you like to suck up to people. The problem is no one sees the temper tantrums from you. They don't see the temper tantrums that you threw in an HR conversation about retention with the adult detention center. They didn't see the temper tantrum you threw when you lost your fight or trying to order us to take physical fitness tests. And by the way, there should be a physical fitness standard for deputies. We shouldn't be fat, slobby, unable to do our job kind of people. But when you lost the fight because you were trying to fight for a very particular thing, you got really angry and threw a fit. People don't see that because you're too polished to let that out into public. But Kevin Torgerson is a smarmy, cocky, arrogant, ignorant bully. And we're going to talk about the things that you ordered me to be wrote up for, Kevin. We're going to talk about that in the days and weeks to come. I've got the documentation all over in my little studio here of all the stuff that you said about me. I've got proof that the county violated, that Brian Howard and you, Kevin Torgerson, violated county policy and procedure when it comes to discipline process. Proof of it. Proof. And the only reason I didn't fight you is I didn't want this stretching out any longer. I'm ready to move on to a new career, but I'm not done talking about this. And this might seem like retribution, because it is. It is retribution. But it's not just you, Kevin, and it's not just you, Brian. It's Kelly Don Martinez. It's J.D. Carlson. Kelly Don Martinez, city attorney of Albert Lea, who was also part of the complaint process. And what was she complaining about? Why did Kelly Don Martinez complain? She complained because I dared to challenge her charging decisions on Lisa Hansen. And I dared to tell people to contact the city of Albert Lea and the city of Albert Lea attorney's office and demand that Kelly Don Martinez not only be ordered to not prosecute Lisa Hansen, but also to be disciplined for using a panic alarm when there was clearly no emergency, which is a violation of Minnesota state statute. Oh, and by the way, that same attorney that was hired to investigate me factually misrepresented what happened in that situation. And I have the videos, and you can see them on Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. There's 3 of them, really, that explain everything that was a lie about what I did. And done in a way to make Kelly Don Martinez, look like she was the victim in this situation, and she wasn't. J.D. Carlson is part of this as well. The director of public safety for the city of Albert Lea. I left a voicemail for him saying, hey, I would like to get your feedback about X situation. I have a video that's coming out in the next 24 hours, and I'd like to be able to add an addendum to the video that says that I've spoke to you and gotten some clarification. They tried to paint that as a threat. Talked to the union attorney, and he's like, that doesn't sound anything like a threat to me. It sounds like a journalist doing his job. So J.D. Carlson, a Marine, former Marine, director of public safety in Albert Lea, the chief of police in Albert Lea, is a coward. Instead of standing on the Constitution, he used his position, along with Kelly Don Martinez, to figure out where I work and make a complaint to try and silence me. And they did for a little while. They won a couple of rounds of the fight, but guess what? I'm coming out swinging. There again, in a metaphorical sense, I do not advocate for violence. I do not advocate for physical retaliation or any other kind of threatening retaliation. But we're going to talk about this, and we're going to detail all of it. We're going to detail every single aspect of this. We are going to read, we're going to listen, we're going to watch, and we're going to talk about J.D. Carlson. We're going to talk about Kelly Don Martinez. We're going to talk about the city of Albert Lea and the mayor of Albert Lea and the city council of Albert Lea and the city administrator of Albert Lea. And we're going to talk about Kevin Torgerson, and we're going to talk about Brian Howard, and we're going to talk about the HR department that failed me when I asked for help. And I have that email chain as well. We're going to go over all of this in the weeks, in the days and the weeks and the months to come. We are going to talk about this several times, multiple times. We're going to talk about this. I'm going to move on with my life. I'm going to go towards my new career. I am going to continue to make content. But you done screwed up, Ron. You done screwed up, because I don't have to be careful anymore. I don't have to stop. I don't have to not say things. And as an aside, well, maybe not an aside, as a part of all of this, I don't have to be careful with Kim Norton anymore either. I mean, she's tried to sick a newspaper reporter on me. I'm pretty sure she's the one that initially approached the sheriff's office about what I was saying about her, because I'm pretty sure I tagged her in the video, but if it wasn't her, it doesn't matter. But I do know that here in the last few weeks that uh, Kevin Torgerson has been upset with me for going after Kim Norton again because it was reported to the union attorney and it got back to me. So, hey, it is what it is, right? It is what it is. I don't have to be careful anymore. They're public servants, every one of them. Kevin Torgerson has forgotten that he's a public servant. He sent out so many emails during the COOF pandemic stuff where he was like, well, the governor has said this, but we're not going to be the mask police. We're not going to be the social gathering police. We're not going to be the social distancing police. That's not the job of my people. And that's pertinent because we'll get into some of the stuff that he accused me of. And so here's something else that you guys need to be aware of. Those of you, especially that work for the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office, he's got spies. You might know one of them. One of them is a deputy, former deputy, used to work the roads over there. Her entire job is to troll social media and patrol social media to see who's saying what, and they're watching you. And I know that they were watching me because they have detail after detail after detail of so many things that I said, and I don't give a damn anymore. I know who you are. I know what you did. And they've got a social media person, some Kyle guy, who makes videos for them. And I'm pretty sure he's probably the one that showed the sheriff how to watch and download things, because Torgerson's not smart enough to figure any of that out on his own. So, I mean, let's just be frank. This is going to be juicy, and I'm going to ride this as long as I can. And they can't do a damn thing about it. There's no gag order. There's no non-disclosure agreement. This is my content. This is my information. This is about me, and I get to talk about it. People of Olmsted County, Kevin Torgerson has spent thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars on just me alone to get rid of me. Just me. Well over several $1,000 just to pay me off to not come back to work. On top of being on administrative leave, paid and earning PTO and benefits throughout May, June, July, August, and now into September. Thousands of dollars, because he could not be bothered to stand on the Constitution, because he could not be bothered to take his oath of office seriously. Once again, I dare you, Kevin. I dare you, Mr. Howard. I dare you, you petty little spies working for Kevin Torgerson, to watch all of my content from March of 2020, April of 2020 till this very video right now. And as I'm shooting this, it's actually 10:01 right now on Thursday night, 9/2/2021. Up until this very freaking moment, I have never once mentioned the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office. I have never once mentioned what I did. I have never once mentioned where I work, what I do, or why. And I have gone to great pains to not talk about it, but it's done. And the only reason is I knew that it was time for me to go was not because I had done anything wrong, because I knew I was going to win. And I knew that when I went back to work, Kevin Torgerson would have found a way to hound me and harass me and to persecute me to the point where I could not work there in that environment anymore. And that was not going to be fair to me. It wasn't going to be fair to my family. It wasn't going to be just. And it was not going to be just for the people that I work with in my team. People who I love, people who I care about, and people who I'm passionately concerned for to this day. So if you think this is over, if you think that you've won a fight, you morons, You are so far from wrong, it stinks. And like I said, I may not be able to get you unseated. I may not be able to do anything about you running unopposed, but I am going to give anybody who wants to run for your office, Kevin, all the ammo that they can use against you. We are going to find out just how much money you have spent, not just on me, but on going after at least 3, maybe 4 people since you took office. And you've lost every one of those fights. One of them came back and took a new job and moved out of state to get away from being in that environment. Another one took a settlement because they were going to win, and you knew they were going to win, and you didn't like that person because you didn't like that person's parent. So in the days and weeks to come, friends and supporters and spies, you're going to see a lot of stuff. And if they stand in my way and they try to snowball me or put roadblocks up in my way, there will be a fight. There again, not physically, but an intellectual and worldview fight. I will do everything in my power to expose the corruption that is Kevin Torgerson. And I will do everything in my power to expose the people who kowtow to him because they're more interested in following orders and doing their jobs than they are in standing on the oaths that they took. And that includes you, Brian Howard. Because the video of the write-up is going to be coming up here pretty soon. And people are going to hear you in your own words get twisted into knots because you didn't have the intellectual moxie to be able to stand toe-to-toe with me. And you said, I'm not here to debate with you, Todd. Just sign the paperwork. You weren't there to debate with me because you knew I'd twist you in circles or twist you in knots. I never wanted this career, but when I got it, I came to love it. I loved helping people. Last week on Wednesday, I ran into a guy that had been a frequent flyer at the Olmsted County Adult Detention Center, and I had seen him in a video somewhere else. I ran into him at a store, and I had heard him make the statement that in a question that he was asking somebody, he says, hey, I'm just a felon. And I approached him last Wednesday, and I said, hey, man, hey, Mr. Smith, I saw that video from 2019 where you referred to yourself as nothing more than a felon. As I'm shaking his hand. And I said, I don't ever want to hear you refer to yourself as nothing more than a felon ever again, friend. And he said, what do you mean? I says, you're not just a felon, man. You're making something of your life. I said, you are a Imago Dei. You're made in the image of God, and you have value and you have dignity because of that. And he hugged me. And he said, man, Todd, thank you. And I got news for you, Kevin Torgerson. That man has got more integrity. That man has more spine. That man has more brains than you ever will. And he might have a felony record, but he is more of a man than you will ever be, you son of a bitch. Kevin Torgerson, you are an evil man. And you have gone out of your way since you took office to destroy hardworking, dedicated, high-performance individuals. You have gone out of your way to do that. You have targeted people because you don't like their opinions and you don't like the fact that they speak out. Well, I have news for you, you evil, petty, vile tyrant. I am not going to stop. And you can't touch me anymore. You can't do a damn thing about it. And for all of you over in Albert Lee, you will never see a threat of physical violence from me or anybody else who follows me. But I will continue to talk about this. And if I can, I will take down every city council member over there. I will take down the mayor. I will take down the chief of police. And I will take down Don Martinez ideologically. Once again, I do not advocate for violence, and I do not advocate for the use of and the initiation of force, but I will not stand by when evil and petty, ignorant people like Kevin Torgerson, Kelly Don Martinez, and Chief J.D. Carlson use their positions and use their authority to destroy people who dare to dissent. You screwed up. You made me your enemy. I did not make you my enemy. You made me your enemy. And I am like a dog with a bone. Dog on a scent. I'm not going to stop. Period. And you can't do a damn thing about it. And I would take 10 more of those Mr. Smiths that I ran into last Wednesday shopping, and line them up as friends than I would ever consider you, Mr. Sheriff of Olmsted County, ever consider someone like you a friend. And I would challenge anyone who thinks you are a good man, who thinks you are a good cop, or thinks you're a good sheriff. I would challenge them to demonstrate how you have done anything that has helped Olmsted County or Rochester since you got into office. Because it is under your watch you have destroyed good deputies so that you could stay in favor with petty little people in petty little towns.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
I don't work for you anymore. And I continue, though, to take my oath seriously, something you don't know, something you don't understand. And I will continue to fight for this republic. And I will continue to do it through lawful and civil means, even if it means people hate me for it. So until next time,
Please listen carefully.
Sic Semper, Tyrannus.
Please listen carefully.